As Chair Hogan mentioned, I'll be talking about the ESP. Also, I'll be talking a little bit about the lawsuit we have with the Metropolitan Water District at the end of my presentation. Our capital improvement program's $3.5 million. That carries us to the year 2030. $1.5 billion of that is the ESP, which is really a collection of projects. This is the ESP. So you can see there are various phases, Liebenhain Reservoir and pipelines in Lake Hodges, which I'll talk about first. And then the suite of projects we have at San Vicente, which includes the dam raise that's just going on right now. The goal of this is to store more water locally, both for an emergency, where if we somehow get cut off by an earthquake up north or whatever from our external water supply, we can keep ourselves going for 6 months. As well as we want to increase our carryover storage that we may need from 1 year or one water year to the next water year. And the idea is to meet our needs to the year 2030. So the first group of projects that I want to talk about is the Liebenhain projects. It's a pipeline, a new dam and reservoir, and a pump station, which are shown in this picture here. The pipeline was completed in 2002. It was $33 million, and the purpose of it is to carry the water from the new reservoir to our aqueduct, which is just to the west of there. The Liebenhain Dam and Reservoir, which is just off north of Del Dios Highway, just west of Escondido. It's kind of vertically separated, so you can't really see it unless you're really in a plane. You can't hike up there. But in terms of driving or the walking by public, you can't really see it. It was completed in 2003 at a cost of just a little less than $200 million. And we store 24,000 acre feet. It's a brand new reservoir, brand new dam. And it also serves the purpose of connecting our aqueduct to Lake Hodges, which I'll mention in a minute. There's no water contact at this reservoir. We do allow hiking around it, but that's the extent of it. It has a pump station just on the downstream side of the dam. There are 3 2,500 horsepower pumps, and the purpose of those pumps that will be in an emergency storage event can move water quickly from the Liebenhain Reservoir as well as Lake Hodges into our aqueduct, so we can get it when we need it. This pump station costs $45 million. Lake Hodges, which is just to the south of there, I'll show a map in a minute, is a project that's good. We're finishing up this year. There's a pipeline that connects Lake Hodges to, which is right down here, to the Liebenhain Reservoir, which I just showed. Has a pump house at Lake Hodges. The purpose of the project is really 2 things now. First of all, it's to pump water from Hodges up to the Liebenhain Reservoir and again take it to our aqueduct. For those of you who've probably, whenever we have if we have a rainy year like last year, Lake Hodges spills. Very little water from Lake Hodges is used. It's one of the largest watersheds in the county, but essentially it either evaporates or goes over the dam. So one purpose of the pump station project is to take that water to the Liebenhain Reservoir and then to our aqueduct. Second purpose is it's a hydroelectric facility. It's a pump storage where, and I'll show a slide in a minute, where we're generating electricity and selling it to SDG&E to put on the grid. So this is the pump station site, just off Lake Hodges, obviously. We completed this year. It cost to be $181 million. And the benefit is about 20,000 acre feet of ESP storage, because once we complete this project and the San Vicente project, which I'll mention in a minute, the water authority of the region will take ownership of 20,000 acre feet within Lake Hodges itself. And then also I mentioned the hydroelectric facility. It's a 40 megawatt plant. So this is the pump house. It's underground, so it's 10 stories underground. There's 2 10-foot in diameter turbines that will when the water's coming down from Lake Liebenhain Reservoir, go through the turbines and generate 20 megawatts from each turbine. 770 feet up to Liebenhain, so we're taking advantage of that elevation difference. Next slide. And this kind of shows how it works, where during the daytime, when rates are high, we do what's kind of shown in the top slide, where water comes down through the Liebenhain Reservoir and goes to the turbines. And so we're generating electricity when rates are high, and we get paid by those rates. During the nighttime, when rates are low, is when we pump from Lake Hodges up to the Liebenhain Reservoir, because you have to keep that balance going. We have a power purchase agreement with SDG&E that's for 25 years, and we gain the revenues of that. Eventually, be $6 million a year, and the project right now has a payback period of about 12 years. Okay, I'm going to leave that part of the county and go to Lakeside, where we have the San Vicente projects. We have a large pipeline which has been completed, which I'll show in a minute, which connects San Vicente to our aqueduct at Mercy Road and I-15. If you ever drive by I-15 and Mercy Road, there's like a project there that's been going on forever. That's our project. And that's the west end of the pipeline. We have a large pump station, which I'll show in a minute, and then we have the San Vicente Reservoir, which I'll show a lot of detail. So this is the pipeline. Again, it's 12 miles. The tunnel itself is about 12 feet diameter. The pipeline is 8 feet. The cost was $460 million. It was tunneled all the way. There was no open cut because we're essentially going through mountains and under mountains to get, as well as underneath Poway, to get to our aqueduct. That took about 4 years to complete. And went very well. We had, during the tunneling phase, we had 3 headings going on at once. We had 3 machines in the ground boring the tunnel. Unfortunately, they all met where they needed to meet. The San Vicente pump station these are 3 7,500 horsepower pumps. They're very large. And again, the purpose of these pumps are to, in an emergency event, get water out of Lake San Vicente and get it over to our aqueduct. And then we have the dam raise, which again is going on right now. We expect to be completed in 2013. And then people always ask, when can we go fishing? When can we go water skiing and all that? It'll take 2 to 5 years to refill the reservoir after 2013, after we complete. A lot of that's just dependent on, one, how much rain we get. If there's cheap water, then we'll buy water and put it in there a lot quicker. Also, it's a raw water source for the city of San Diego, so they're pulling water out of there. So it's a $450 million project. This is what it'll look like when it's over, so I'll kind of go back and forth once so you get an idea of how big and vast this project is. There's a 220-foot dam existing. We're adding 117 feet to it, so obviously it's a lot broader at its base. And this is the benefit of the project, where currently it's 220 feet, so there's 90,000 acre-feet of storage. By adding the 117 feet, we're getting an additional 152,000 acre-feet because the topography is very gentle, so we're taking advantage of that topography, and that's why we gain so much more storage while just increasing the dam by about a half. 100,000 of that is for carryover storage, which means for year to year, and 52,000 acre-feet of that is for the emergency storage project. This slide essentially shows, you can kind of see the existing lake is what the outline was, and then in blue will be the new shoreline. So you can tell it gets a lot bigger. And this is another picture that shows it done. This is a surge tank that I mentioned. During construction, we have a batch plant. If you've ever been to the San Vicente Reservoir, there's a marina there. The marina's there, not there right now. We demoed it because it would be submerged. So the contractor's making all his concrete on site. Where you have a quarry there, we're using the rock, the sand. The only material we bring on site is cement and fly ash to make the concrete. For 2 reasons. One, it's cheaper. And then secondly, really out of respect for the neighborhood, they did not want to have all those trucks going back, concrete trucks going back and forth through the neighborhood. So we have a batch plant on the site. We're making the concrete. And then we have a conveyor system. The batch plant's at the top of the slide. You see the dam's over here. So we have a conveyor system that's about a half mile, just a shade over half a mile, which carries the concrete from the batch plant to the reservoir site. And this gives you an idea what it looks like down this is right at the beginning of the project, after we had finished the foundation part of the work and preparing it for the concrete. I mentioned the contractor is working out there now. The schedule right now is March 2013. We're comfortable we'll be done in 2013. So we're very excited about the project. It's a big, giant project. And then we will replace the marina. We worked closely with the city of San Diego because they wanted their marina back. So it'll be a slightly bigger marina, not a whole lot of bells and whistles because they don't want to have the responsibility of taking care of the bells and whistles. So the focus is really on parking. And then what you can't see here is the extended docks and all that for the boats. So that's the San Vicente project. And so kind of to summarize the purpose and need of the projects we are, this kind of a simulation of a dam shows where we are, where we're going. We're leaving Hein Dam, we'll be adding 24,000 acre feet. When we finish the Lake Hodges project, we'll gain another 20,000 acre feet by bringing Lake Hodges into the aqueduct system. And then when the San Vicente project is done, it's another 152,000 acre feet. And then we have groundwater storage of Northern California for a total of 196,000 acre feet. So that's really the purpose of the projects we're doing. It's to add to the reliability. You saw the pie charts that Chair Hogan used. We're gaining a lot of surface storage with these projects. So this is a summary. It began in 2000. Will be completed with the first phase in 2014. We've issued debts. We're spreading the cost over several decades to minimize the rate impacts. We gained 90,000 acre feet of emergency storage, and then all the environmental mitigation for these projects is included in them. So I'll leave that for now, and then I'm going to talk about the Met, our lawsuit against Memphis Brown Water District, which you may have heard about. We're right now, a couple of us in the Water Authority are doing presentations up and down the county. And so I pulled out 6 or 7 slides out of what's really a 35-slide presentation just to kind of give you the gist of it. We're more than willing to come to a city council meeting. I'm going to Oceanside City Council tomorrow night because we would like resolutions of support to kind of help us with that. So I'm going to kind of get to the gist of why we're doing this. First of all, money matters. Over the next 45 years, what we are arguing about in the lawsuit is $1.3 billion to $2.1 billion. And this, again, this isn't how much we will send up to Met when we're buying water. This is just that portion of that we're arguing about. Kind of to lay out what the gist of the lawsuit is. Some of you may have heard of the QASA, the Colorado River Transfers. Well, back in 2003, we negotiated an agreement with the Imperial Irrigation District. Met was involved, where we're purchasing our own water out the Colorado River that we own. That really has 2 pieces to it. First of all, 200,000 acre feet annually for 45 to 75 years, where we're essentially paying the Imperial Valley to be more efficient in their farmland and all that. And so by them being more efficient, we're paying them for that water, and now we'll own this water. That's 200,000 acre feet. Secondly, Chair Hogan mentioned the canal linings. The All-American Canal and the Coachella canals are canals that come off the Colorado River. They had always been earthen canals, so water seeps through there, and so that water was lost. We lined those with concrete, and so we gain that water that no longer seeps becomes our water. And that amounts to about 80,000 acre feet, and we have our agreements that's our water for 110 years. So what this created a need for is when we had been traditionally buying water from Met, it was one rate. It was one total rate for both the supply and the transportation. We now had our own supply. So we didn't believe that we should be paying that portion of the rate that really should be attributed to supply, but we didn't need to pay them for transportation because even though we own that water out in the Imperial Valley, we've got to get it here, so we're using their canals to do that. And so they were compelled to disaggregate that one rate into really 2, a supply rate and a transportation rate. So what we believe they did is they concocted something. Their problem was we are their biggest. We buy about 1/3 of their water. We're 1/3 of their revenue base. So when we got our own supply, that was a hit to them. And so what we believe they did was they created a transportation charge that had some of their water supply costs in that. And then we're the biggest user of the transportation charge because A, we're at the south end of the state. Secondly, we have our own supply source that we need to use that water for. So what we believe they did was misallocated that transportation charge. So this slide kind of is an attempt to break that down, where before the QSA, again, we had one rate before 2003. So 2003 comes along where you have the QSA, so they need to disaggregate it, and they create a water supply and a water system cost, which is really transportation cost. How much it costs to move that water from point A to point B. So what this slide shows is what they did, what we believe they did. What's shown in blue for all 4 slides should be the supply rate. But what they did was they have 3 rates that make up the transportation rate. The system access rate, which is taking care of the canals and all that. The power rate takes a lot of power to move water, especially if you're going up a hill. And then secondly, the stewardship rate, which is really the conservation part. So those 3 make up the transportation rate. And what's in black, we believe, should be part of the transportation part. What's shown in light blue should actually be in the water supply. And so we believe that which is in blue is more than we should be paying, and it's a big hit to this county's ratepayers. So this kind of slide shows just by proportion what we're talking about. It's a big amount of money, a big amount of proportion, big amount of money that we're paying that we do not believe we should be. So we have taken them to court on it. One thing when we filed suit, the court agreed that which we are arguing about we placed in escrow. Met can't use that during the period of time of the lawsuit. It has to be set aside and put into escrow. And then if we prevail, that money will come back to us. By the end of this year, it'll be $78 million. By the end of 2013, it'll be $135 million. So we're talking about real money here. And if we win that money, then if we win the lawsuit, Met must return that money to the Water Authority. And then what our board would likely do, would certainly consider, is then returning that money to its member agencies. So the status of litigation, it's been assigned to Judge Richard Kramer up in San Francisco. Both ourselves and Met agreed that it shouldn't be argued in Southern California. So they moved it up to Northern California. He's what's called a complex judge in the sense that only he gets the complex cases that are really difficult to get their way through. So he's the judge for that. Generally, complex cases have a lot more attention. They take a lot more court's resources. So that's why that decision was made. We expect a decision in late 2012. Certainly there'll be appeals, so don't really know when it'll end. The Imperial Irrigation District, as well as UCAN, Utilities Consumer Action Network, they've joined as litigants on our side. January 6th, the court granted the Water Authority and IID a motion to allow discovery. Met did not want there to be a discovery phase of this project, the lawsuit, where each side could look at each other side's documents. We argued vehemently that the base of this case would be what you find in those documents. So the judge is allowing discovery, and the next hearing is middle of next month, which is the case management conference. And that is the end of my presentation.